Hi, welcome. On this video, I'd like to discuss an issue that's very confusing for a lot of people regarding um, how um, how to bring a dog into agreement to accept certain situations that the dog's very reactive with, and so when you look at the context of, again, talk about relationship and what you're advocating. Okay, at that level, it's really it goes beyond just the acceptance part. You have to actually frame it up through understanding the motives of dogs and these control issues themselves within that foundation of acceptance. And so, for example, you may have a dog you see on my videos. Coco is very reactive to a broom, which is again through that association to perhaps the broom is associated to area. Again, I'll see on the videos me working Coco within a very narrow, tight space. You have to walk that back to the relationship itself to understand, why a dog becomes reactive. It's about control. These control issues, how they manifest, and begin to negatively impact the decision-making process of the dog. The mind starts pulling in. And then on top of that, by default, once a dog begins to gain control in the relationship, stress comes onto the dog. So that's where you'll see the back leg shaking, you'll see the dog react. But again, the very popular way to try to overcome this, okay, again, what's being advocated is to try to use treats, to try to coax the dog in. But again, just understand when you're doing that based on the perceptions of the dog, again, but relationship, understanding the path that will take is that, yes, you can have a dog come into agreement with that and appear to get better, okay, but again, understanding about the context of acceptance. Okay, dogs that this is the same scenario when dogs will accept certain people and not others. Okay, so it's about control. Dog finds fulfillment that way. So through what's established, and I talk about this issue of why the pictures can be so deceiving. You have to take and apply the same type of relational context to, say, in the human world, if you look at a selfish child, what you're advocating. And so, yeah, the child can accept certain situations by way of what you're advocating, but it doesn't mean that the relationship's changing. That the context of accepting certain situations, has to be framed up, okay, through depth, through relationship. So again, it's about going beyond just the acceptance. You have to look at the context of why the dog is accepting, and this is very difficult because the temptation is, okay, you want to feel good about the process, you don't want to hurt the dog, you don't want to so when you start to advocate influence, okay, and you'll see that in my video, it's very difficult for people to reconcile that because the temptation is, well, there's a better way, right? Because but they're looking at it a very superficial way. Because here's the thing: when you advocate differently, when you promoting a very superficial narrative, because that's what this learning-based ideology represents. And so the context of, say, positive or treats with influencing a dog into certain situations, it takes on different contexts because it's attached through what's established in the relationship. It's not just some influencing agent, it attaches to what's established. That's how a dog's mind pivots. So then it connects to the person themselves through having control, okay, at that level. And so the issue of coaxing and turns into bribing a dog, basically. But what holds everything together truly is what I call relational glue, which means that what happens when you approach it, when you're advocating through using certain motivating agents and even control itself, okay, the kind of draw of the dog coming in and accepting, you have to look at what that represents through how a dog's decision-making process is governed. It's relationship. And so the context of that, or to put that to the test, this is why when you advocate that way, now the same example I use is that it can appear like everything's going great, but it's the same scenario with, say, the example I use with dealing with a selfish child. It's like they're selfish already, and you're advocating because you're like the parent, just like here, you're the dog owner, and so you're trying to kind of set the scenario up. And you'll see that in my video called behavioral adjustment training. If you really apply the context of relationship and control, you'll see how this kind of roadmap, they're doing certain things because the dog's reacting. If you go straight in, you're going to get a certain reaction from the dog, because what you're doing is you're laying out a roadmap to get the dog to accept, to advocate the dog being in control. The dog already has control issues, okay? But the same holds true if you take a selfish child into a situation to get along with other children, and they're selfish, and what you're doing is you're basically going in and you're rearranging that picture to have the dog accept that situation, but you're like taking all the blocks and all the toys and piling them into the corner. So the child, you're advocating the child is accepting only because they're getting, they're maintaining a level of selfishness and control. They're in that situation, but it's a false picture. So this is why the same example applies when you advocate that way with a dog to accept a certain situation. Say if I did that with a broom, and I use treats and what's called positive reinforcement to get the dog to come in and settle in and deal with what they call the feelings of the dog, right? But to get the dog to accept. But the problem with that is because I'm not advocating properly, I'm not really truly advocating right relationship and dealing with these control issues head on. Then what happens is it all falls to pieces, because I'll get that, but then in the relationship I'm still gonna have issues. So if the broom is, and you'll see this, so then the broom is in a different situation because it's a very superficial thing I'm doing. I change the broom into a different situation, and then I'll start to get the same reactions again from the dog. Okay, then I got to repeat the same, same exercise, the same association, but I'm always doing that. So truly, if you really ask these behavioralists, you'll see them doing this over and over and over again, because you're not, the control issues are still coming out. They're still manifesting because you haven't really fixed the relationship. You're applying this superficial, appearance-based narrative, but you're trying to advocate, but you're advocating through the dog maintaining control. Okay, the perceptions of the dog are not changing, just in that kind of a picture. But if you look at, kind of get a three-dimensional view of the relationship, it's still a mess. Okay, but again, if you look at the deeper issue here, the people don't want to change how they think. Okay, they have trouble with this because they think it's unreasonable. Well, yeah, the reaction will look kind of unreasonable because the dog, if you look at the video, what's happened with Coco is, of course, you're going to get that reaction. The mind's pulling in, but how I'm doing the method, the dog comes into agreement with. Okay, so you'll see the transition happen from the broom out in the training area, but even in that tight area I'm working in, which really triggers Coco a little bit, how I'm doing the method, integrity of the method, Coco's releasing that state of mind. So it all comes together properly. Just something to think about. Thanks for watching.